speak with us today. For those of you who don't know who Farnoosh is, she's an esteemed graduate of Penn State and a daily Collegian alumna who has gone on to work in television, editorial, and podcasting. Farnoosh, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Sure. So lately I've done a lot of different things. I mean, I mostly have worked in the media. I basically graduated from Penn State and went to journalism school. So married a degree in business with a degree in journalism, and basically started working in financial journalism at age 23, and have had the great opportunities to work at a lot of different kinds of newsrooms. So print, magazine, digital, television. I've written books. So I feel like I've gotten a nice variety of experiences all within the vertical of financial storytelling. And I was a victim of the recession in 2009. I lost my 9 to 5 newsroom job. At the time, I was working at thestreet.com, which is still around, and it's a wonderful site for, market insights and things like that. And fortunately, at the same time, I just published a book. I was starting to do some more speaking, and was before it was what we would call maybe a personal brand or influencer. I was kind of starting to build my own independent personal brand that was exclusive of, working at in a newsroom. I had a Twitter account that was pretty much like, my calling. And then I got laid off, so I had to make a decision, which was whether to go back into a newsroom world, which the options were kind of slim, or continue to build on the momentum that I had started to build on my own, on like these side hustles. And I just kind of went for it, almost out of necessity, but also there was that desire in me to do that. I think that the layoff gave me the kick in the pants to finally do it. I was worried about health insurance and, but all of that is like, it's like the wrong things to be worrying about. I think when so many people come to me and they're like, should I start my own business? I don't know where to get health insurance. I'm like, if that's the only thing, like, that's figure outable. So that was 2009. So I guess for the last 11, 12 years, I've been independent, but I have been doing a lot of different things. So again, all within the realm of financial advice. I've been, writing more books, and the big things that take up a lot of my time now are the podcasts. So I have a podcast called So Money, which I started 6 years ago, which has been really a great avenue for me to continue building community, attracting business, telling great stories, learning, and along the way, like, might do a television show that runs for one season and gets canceled. Or, I do speaking. I do a lot of brand work. So a lot of my work is B2B. So where a lot of people that are, in the expert world might go directly to consumer and do courses and self-published books. I've done a lot of behind the scenes work, working with like JP Morgan Chase, or, right now work with Capital One, still very consumer facing, but working with them and using a lot of their resources to work together collaboratively to, like, reach audiences. And that, and it's always evolving. Like right now, I'm considering a shift, going back maybe into a newsroom, not full time, but like in a big meaty way. And, you know, it's always, I think for me as a self-employed person, the challenge is always like, okay, what is going to be the new creative project that I'm going to work on, or what is like the impact that I really want to go with this year or over the next 2 years. And that's, there's no one that's like telling me what to do, which is nice, but you also really need to keep yourself accountable. And but there's no shortage of like inspiration, I guess, with all that's going on in the world. And having this podcast, I get to really hear from people every day, and not just my guests, but listeners, audience people, like, what do they care about? What's on their minds, so that I can come with more of an informed, like whatever I do is really driven by what my audience wants. And that's always the best way, I think, to do things. So anyway, that was a really long answer to your question of what do I
No,
do?
that's perfect.
Clearly my mother doesn't still know what I do. Cause she like, you guys, if you're still with me, like, God bless you. But like a lot of people, they kind of like drop, if I'm at a party and they're like, what do you do? Like they regret it. Cause it's like 3 hours later, I'm like, and then I have this podcast and it's really great. So in short, I guess my business card is like financial advice, financial expert, author, podcaster.
Yeah, that's awesome. So during your time at the Daily Collegian, you were an account executive for the sales department. How did you decide that's what you wanted to do during your college career, and how did that influence your career postgraduate?
Yeah. Well, I think I've always been drawn to media, hands down. Like I remember, like in 6th grade or 7th grade, our teacher was like, this week or this month, we're going to learn how to like put together a newspaper. And I felt like the clouds parted and like the heavens were like calling my name. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But being the daughter of immigrants, you really only have like 3 career options. One was like be a doctor, a lawyer, or like, you know, what's like the third option, like basically get a PhD in something. And I didn't really want to do any of that. So the idea of becoming a journalist was always something that I was met with a lot of resistance, whether that was, culturally like, well, you're going to make no money, or like, what is that? So, it's such a hard competitive field. Like, we're going to go work for like the Bumblebee newspaper in like Texas, or like become Diane Sawyer. Like, there's no in between. And so then I would also meet journalists and they would be like, oh, it's so hard. You can have a family. You got to work on Thanksgiving. The pay is so little. And so I was like, all right, well, yet so many people do it, but I guess, if I'm going to carry this torch of like my parents, my immigrant parents sacrificing everything to come to this country, like I better like make something of my life that doesn't like basically boil down to like, having a hard life, making no money, which is how journalism was sort of, behind the scenes pitched to me, as opposed to this like glamorous, fun, important job, because people need to be informed. So I really like struggled with that. And yet when I went to college, I did the practical thing and I majored in business. But even as early as like sophomore year, freshman year, when I was looking at internships, I was looking at like working for Disney or, CNBC, or like trying to get basically, be in a media environment. And I was like, all right, if I can't like do the media, I want to just like hang out with the media, and maybe I'll do finance. And that was my major at Penn State. So the Collegian was sort of that. It was like, well, I'm a business major who is fascinated by the media. So let's go do finance things or sales things within the context of media. And maybe I didn't realize it then, but looking back, that's probably why I landed there initially. Because for me, it was like I also worked in my high school newspaper. I was the editor in chief of my high school newspaper. So I was really, I love the newsroom, right? So I wanted to like replicate that experience. And I didn't feel like writing for the newspaper was worthwhile because I was majoring in business. So it didn't, although now looking back, it would have been brilliant if I had, but I was like, that's not a good use of my time. Let me like spend some time in a newsroom, but doing business things. And, it all worked out, obviously, but I think what was, initially, that was the initial draw, was like, and then I also remember seeing an ad, I think freshman year in my dorm hall, like to work as an account executive and how you could make money. And I really wanted to make money. So that, to be completely honest, like that was also a sweet part of the deal.
Farnoosh,
Yeah,
did you write for the Collegian too, or did you?
I didn't,
My brain is mush. That's like 20 years ago. I don't remember.
Funny enough, I never wrote for the Collegian. But I remember, so my junior year internship, my summer of my senior year, before senior year, you all have like internships if you're lucky. And I got my internship, the summer before that was at CNBC on the sales team for like one of their as a digital sales intern. And I remember like, that was my moment where I was like, okay, quit fooling yourself. Like you just keep repeating this like pattern of like, I'm going to be a finance person in a newsroom or in a media environment. And I remember like that like I'd be at 30 Rock in New York where the office was at the time. And I would run into like, I'd walk past the Today Show. I would see Katie Couric in the commissary. I would see TV news blasted on all the screens on every floor, on every elevator. And so I was like, I don't want to be behind a PowerPoint making, sales decks or marketing decks or giving out tchotchkes down at the financial district that say CNBC on them for the marketing team. Like I want to be I want to be telling the news. I want to be telling the stories. So that summer was very pivotal for me. And I started to research, okay, I was like, I have 2 more years left in college. I don't want to change my major, but I know I want to head towards the news world and I'm going to try to make this work. And I'm okay with working on Thanksgiving because like I had realized like I love it that much. And I started to look at internships for the next summer or things I could start doing at Penn State to just make the most of my education to be able to hit the ground running in news upon graduation. I ended up going to graduate school for a year after that, which was also like, you need to prepare for that too. So I started looking at graduate programs, like maybe I should do that. So I didn't write at the Collegian, but I got an internship in news the next summer. And that helped me get into journalism school, which then, kind of set me off for the rest of my life. But I did not write for, I did not write for the Daily Collegian. That was probably a missed opportunity.
No, it's more my failing memory of what I like, because I remember, sorry, not to derail all this, but I feel like I have like a spark in there of like a crossover moment of like from business to news along the way.
Yeah. So. It's possible I may have, but I don't remember. I don't think I did.
Oh, never mind me. So sorry, Lizzie, I'll stop interrupting.
All good. All good. So I guess you kind of touched on this a little bit with your internship and how you figured out that's what you wanted to do. But I was wondering if there was like a really valuable lesson or experience or just kind of like skills that you learned at the Daily Collegian that helped you. Yeah.
Oh, so many. Well, one was just collaboration. When you're at the Collegian, although there were the fellow account executives that I felt like I only saw like once a week or never, or only at the parties or something, who kind of kept, their lives separate from. But if you really wanted to, you could make a family for yourself within the Collegian. And more than that, it was not just like we loved hanging out with each other, but we were learning also like how to work together, which I think is critical. So, eventually if you're there long enough, you become senior and you're like, the people who were in your training team then become like, the ad or they work in creative, or then they're like your business manager, like Megan was our business manager. And then, and there's other people at the Collegian too that have full-time roles. So learning how to communicate with everybody to be able to achieve your goals and to do that, I just think like some people, we've never done that. So it's like a really great opportunity to learn how to be kind and receptive and, not, if you don't agree with somebody, like how to work through that there was enough of that I think was really foundational for the rest of, as I grew my career and as I got into the real world. But more so, I think what it taught me was how to sell, how to pitch. And in my world, that's all I do. I'm constantly like coming up with ideas and trying to pitch it and convince people. Like every week I have to come up with ideas for my editors. And, it's a negotiation that you're learning. It's like learning what the other person needs and giving them that, but also recognizing what your goals are. So in trying to it's a science, it's an art. And I think that the Collegian was a really great foundation for that, whether that was like going to a new account and meeting them and listening and learning what their goals are and coming back to them with ideas. and there's some rejection in that, and there's some, there's feedback you have to take, and it's like a real, it's a real job, like there are very few experiences in college that simulate the real world. And I think the Collegian, at least, whether I think you're working in news or business, was that, because like we're the #1 college paper. Like we had bigger distribution than I think the Telegram and Gazette or whatever the paper was. I'm mixing up my local papers. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, the Center Daily Times.
Center Daily Times, right? Like we had, I think, bigger distribution, or we were the biggest lead, we were the big lead. We were the biggest distributed college paper in the country.
Yeah.
I think at the time when I was there, it was like circulation was like, I don't know, 30,000 or 20 to 30,000, which is a lot, and, people were you could make a lot of money if you really wanted to on the business side. I remember one summer I worked there, and, it was great. But it really taught, like, I remember, I think I told you, Lizzie, before we were on the phone, I was like, there was this one account, I graduated to like having this big account, which I don't think exists anymore, but Dante's. Megan, remember that? It was a lesson in like, I got Me Too'd during that, like the guy who ran the account was a total misogynist. But, so that was a lesson in like how to like hold your ground and like, not, kill someone on the job. But also very demanding, many accounts, very like could be very overwhelming, but I did it. I got out of that mostly unscathed, but there was one experience when I forgot to put in an ad. Like it never happened. It was the weirdest thing. Like I couldn't even tell you why it happened. He called me one day furious, like, where's the whatever ad for Tuesday advertising the big band that's coming into town today? And so this account was a bunch of restaurants and this place called the Crowbar, which was where a lot of bands would come and perform in State College. And they were a huge account. They had like ads every day, multiple ads. And one of the ads didn't get placed, which was unfortunate because it was the day that like it was to promote a band that was coming that day. And I got out of class and I skipped I like cleared my afternoon and I went down to the Collegian and I was like, well, what am I going to do about this? Like, I can't put the ad in the paper because it would have like that ship sailed. But I can print out the ad and start handing it out to as many people as possible on College Avenue. And I did that. And actually I ran into the band on the street. They were like, this is us. I'm like, well, can you give this to Dave over at Dante so he knows that I'm, so it was an education in humility and failure and learning how to pick yourself up from failure. Like, there's always something you can do, right? There's always something you can do. And I think that that's a lesson that I have, like, you can't control what happened in the past, but what can you do now to maybe not make it whole, but make better on a situation that stinks. So that was a time I'll never forget. But I'm still friends with a lot of people from the Collegian too. So it's an opportunity to build long-lasting relationships. And it's like, you think of your college friends, and I think of so many of college. To me, like, so much of that is the Collegian experience. I was lucky to be there for 4 years, which is the maximum unless you become a super senior or something. But I was even there for a summer, so that was like 4.25 years.
That's amazing. Yeah, it is such a great place to work. And I know you're talking earlier about some internships you were able to have during your college experience. I guess, do you have any tips on networking or the job application process or intern application process that you found helpful or that worked for you or anything?
Yeah. Well, this was like so many years ago, right? This was before LinkedIn. This was before the internet as we know it. And I was still envelope mailing a lot of my, resumes to the generic HR department address, or I was faxing. And so I remember like the internship that I got, I guess it was like, now this would have been my sophomore year, which was early. Like, you don't have to get an internship your sophomore year. Like junior year is kind of the go year for that. But I sent out a lot of, like, looking back, like it was a waste of my time. Like that's not how you get a job, you know. The one person out of the many that I not emailed, but mailed to or faxed to was this woman at CNBC who was a Penn State grad. And she got my fax resume and emailed me or called me and was like, I got your resume. We have an internship program. It's not really a program, but we do have interns. We don't pay them. So you have to be in New York. And like, I was okay with that. I was like, okay, well, I'll figure it out. And I got, low income housing at, not low income, but like student housing at NYU, which you can do if anybody's interested in coming to New York. Let me know, because I know like the tricks to getting like relatively lower cost housing in New York for students. And that was how I got that internship. It was the Penn State connection. But I think also it was a direct correlation to working at the Collegian in sales. This was a sales internship at a .com. So, it was, but a lot of internships are not, it's not about like leveraging your skill set. It's like, can you make this copy? You're like you're the coffee runner. You're the, handing out the keychains that say CNBC on them on the street person. And I'd done that, because maybe that's what gave me the inspiration for handing out those flyers for Crowbar. The following summer, I got an internship, a better one in New York. That was an actual program for interns for editorial interns at Time Inc., which is now Meredith, which, they have a whole family of magazines like Time Magazine, Sports Illustrated, although a lot of them got sold off at this point. But at the time, it was like Money Magazine, Fortune, In Style, People, and you apply and you let them know like, what is your favorite magazine to work for? And I just put Money, because I was like, well, I'm a finance major, so I guess Money and like Fortune and Fortune Small Business. And the woman called me from HR and she was like, are you sure you want to work at these magazines? Like, you're kind of the only one, you're the only like 21-year-old who wants to work at Money Magazine. Like, are you really 100? Because this is not, she's like, we have a lot of other magazines. We have Entertainment Weekly, we have People. And I was like, but I don't have, like, I have a finance background. Like, isn't that what I have to do? And, so my advice is be the only or the single or the few. Like if you don't see yourself represented in something, go do that thing, because you'll stand out and you'll more likely get that opportunity. Where the space is crowded, even because maybe it's exciting, but try to find like opportunities that maybe are sort of the diamonds in the rough that, with internships, a lot of times, like, the ones that are posted and the ones that are like, programs, they're very hard to break into because you're one of many people applying. But, I would encourage you that if you have a very specific idea of what you want to do or what you want to at least experience over the summer, finding maybe a smaller company or a company that doesn't even have an internship posted, but there's like a shorter line to getting to the person who's going to make that decision. So you can like directly email, like for example, if I wanted to get an internship at USA Today, maybe Megan can help us with that at one point, but like, or like, let's look at a different example, like, any magazine, any digital media company. First, I would become a fan of that site. I would learn about the articles and I would start to just consume it so that you can start to get a feel for like who writes articles there, who's behind the website. A lot of these people you can find on Twitter with their emails or Instagram with their direct emails or direct message them. A lot of media people it's their job to be on social media. And a lot of times they give you their contact. I wouldn't call them, but I would email them, and more to say like, I love your site. I read it every morning. The last article you wrote about this was really helpful. I really loved it. I'm looking for an internship this summer, and I'm not sure if your if your brand or your website is hiring or looking for interns, but and this may not be the person who's going to hire the interns, but it might just be like a writer on the site or a video producer on the site, but they're on the inside. And now they are like appreciating you because you reached out in a very authentic and honest way that wasn't like, gimme, or here's just my resume, but it was like an engaged email. Like, I loved your piece about blah, blah, blah. And, I would love, like, a dream would be to like, support this magazine and, contribute ideas and just learn and blah, blah, blah. And I'm getting a degree in journalism or whatever. And you can do the same thing for on the business side too. Like, there, a lot of times if you go on their websites, they'll tell you like who are the sales managers, who are the, account executives, and just kind of start like a really thoughtful, engaged email. And not going to say they'll always reply, but it's a better way to get their attention than just, submitting your resume to the blank HR at, blah, blah, blah.com. And then really saying like, who is the best person to reach at your company to inquire about internships? And maybe they'll be really generous and be like, I'll just connect you, or they'll give you a name. But now you have not only just a name of someone who's in charge of internships, but you have an established relationship with somebody else. And you can say like so-and-so recommended that I get in touch with you. And so it's just a warmer way to get in touch with people. It's not a slam dunk solution, but it's definitely better and more effective than just putting your, applying to a job post online. And if you do apply to a job post online, I feel like the world is only getting smaller and smaller. Like, you probably know someone who works at that company, even if they're not in the same department. Like, just find a warm body who has something to do with that company and get them to do a little investigating for you. Or maybe they do have a relationship with somebody who's on the hiring side. You just never know. So don't assume that just because you're in college or you haven't really built up your LinkedIn network yet, that there's no way you're going to have any opportunities like that, but you might be surprised.
Yeah, I think that's great advice because I'm sure like the other students on this call can back me up when I say like applying to a bunch of different jobs on
Just nobody
LinkedIn
gets a job
and
that way. Yeah. I think it's also important to let people know what your intentions are. For every job that I have gotten, it's because I have been vocal about it, and not to like anybody who'll listen, but I remember if you have, I'll just try to bring this to your world a little bit more, but like if there are people, your college professors, right? Or when you go home, or we're all home now, but like if you are talking to relatives or a neighbor or an older friend, who's, again, people who are already out there working, and maybe not even in the same field as you, but look, I mean, like everyone, it's all degrees of separation, but just like people who will advocate for you, who want you to be successful, those are the people that you should tell your goals to. And so don't limit your goals to your friends and your parents or your roommate, right? Talk up your goals to everybody you meet that might, be interested in like listening and thinking on your behalf. And maybe, there's not a quick solution, but the next time that person who just heard what you want to do is in a meeting with somebody who's like, I really wish I had an intern who could help me with this, they're going to think of you. And it's just, you gotta just, and so I think that it's important to remind people of this. I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer, but a lot of times we're shy or intimidated, or we think like our goals are too big or like too lofty to share them with people, or we're into, like there's like, you're shy about it or whatever your reason. Totally get it, but it's not going to happen if just sitting on your couch, not telling people about it and just applying to the internet jobs. Like, you have to tell real people who are out there doing things what you want to do. and things will start to happen. I mean, I can say this in my life, like it has happened so many times. And people can help you brainstorm too. It's not like they're just gonna, people don't, it's like sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So, like this time last year, start thinking about, I have this podcast, like, what do I, is there more to it? Like, can I sell this podcast? Can I have it become part of like a podcast world? Can I sell it to Spotify? And it was really just more for me, it started as an exploration. Like I didn't have an answer, and I just wanted to talk to people who knew more than me about what could be possible. And so, I started to like ask. My brother has got a friend who works in venture capital, and he works with a lot of media companies. So he got on the phone with me, and then he connected me to somebody else, and then that person connected me to. And so I've had like a dozen conversations about this, and all the while just like getting me clear on what I don't want to do. Sometimes that's worthwhile. What is it that I don't want to do to get you closer to what it is you do want to do? And just getting a lot of people thinking on your behalf, putting all those heads together. It's so invaluable. And you may think again, like, I'm a student. How can I help these people? Let me tell you a story about that. So I was in college. I remember, I do a lot of the Today Show, and I was at the Today Show one day, and one of the interns was a Penn Stater. She was a page, the NBC page program. It's been around forever. I think David Letterman was an NBC page, and she was an NBC page at the Today Show. And she saw my name on the list of guests, and she was like, "Oh, I think Farnoosh went to Penn State." So she introduced herself to me backstage, and I think we emailed a few times, and I just kind of, I don't know, I forget because it was so many years ago, but she never forgot. And fast forward like 10 years, she's now like very senior at NBC, and like occasionally puts in a good word for me at the Today Show and gets me booked. Like it's not anything that I ever did because I wanted to, like, I didn't think that far ahead, but like everybody is going to have their moment to be able to help or give back. And, I've just never been that person that's like, what's this person going to do for me? And I think that sometimes when you're inexperienced or younger, you feel intimidated to ask for help because you're like, well, how can I reciprocate? And don't worry about that, because there are plenty of people in this world that just want to help. That's it. I've learned that. Like they get a high off helping. That's their personality. Like that's what gives them meaning. And, some people are givers, some people are helpers, some people thrive at other things, but like, don't worry about how you're going to help them in return. It's, if you can one day, great, but it's not why they're doing it.
Yeah, and that's such a great way to be someone who's just authentically like trying to help the next person out um, in the same kind of career field. Another question I had for you kind of goes along with the networking, a little different. So do you have any tips or experience, or did you have any like major revelations on any like continuing learning? Like, did you ever have to like just be able to become proficient in a certain program or a certain technology or something in your field?
All the time. Like, especially in the beginning of my career, I remember in news, there's always a technology you have to learn, to do the job. And I remember in graduate school, we learned a lot of that, how to work a camera, how to edit, but the technology is always changing. Like by the time I was actually in a newsroom, I had to learn a whole new set of technology and new editing and all of that. One of the best jobs I ever had was at a place called New York One News. For those of you who ever lived in New York or have family there, visited, like, it used to be owned by Time Warner Cable, and I always called it like the CNN of New York. It's like 24-hour New York cable news. And it's not a unionized shop, so anyone can do anything there. And, it's not this assembly line where if you've ever worked at like other newsrooms are, the cameraman is the only one who can touch the cameras, and the editors are the only ones who can edit. And it's very like strict. But at New York One, it was not strict. Anyone could do anything. So I was excited about this because I thought, I'm going to leave here. And although I'm going to make no money, I'm going to get like a PhD in how to like broadcast news and all the behind the scenes of broadcast news. So I learned how to shoot. I learned how to like really shoot with like different kinds of cameras. I learned how to edit. I learned, how to use ENPS, which I don't even know if exists anymore, but it's like the software that they use to publish the news, like publish stories that then air on TV, and how to cut things. It's like, that was such a steep learning curve that I almost quit. Like I got getting yelled at like every day, like, Farnoosh, you forgot to do this, or, oh my God, when you filmed that guy, like you could only see him from the nose down, and what's wrong with you? And like, I was like, this is not going to be my demise. Like I will figure this out, even if I have to stay up all night and figure it out. But I finally did. And, it's like one of those things, once you learn how to ride a bike, you just know. But it was very hard in the beginning. And I had to definitely take SHIT from people for like a long 6 months before I got really good at it. But, it was, but it was, so I'm not using any of that stuff anymore. So you might think like, what was that for? But it was helpful for that job, and it was helpful for the next job. And it was just that sort of like work ethic that when you flex that muscle to like be determined to learn something like that, you can replicate in your career over and over again in other ways. So like starting a podcast, a lot of people don't start podcasts because the tech intimidates them. They're like, I don't like, what kind of microphone should I get? Do I need a mixer? Like, I don't have a soundproof house. And, I think that I had those same concerns, but because I had already a very like hard lesson in tech in my earlier professional life, that like, I was like, I can figure this out. Like, at least this time, no one's yelling at me. Like, I'm just doing this on my own in my house, and I can troubleshoot this and not get like fired. So the tech definitely, technology is always something to learn. And we're all doing that again now, right? With like Zoom, and a lot of people who've been used to throwing conferences in person are now having to do that virtually, and having to learn how to like orchestrate, things like this, and even more sophisticated things. So it has really accelerated, people's learning when it comes to any kind of technology, which I guess is a good thing. Unfortunately, we've been doing it under duress, but at least we've learned it now. And now, like, we're that much more valuable.
Right. And it sounds like you said you've been doing your podcast for about 6 years. Is that what you said earlier?
Yeah.
And that's like, I feel like in recent years, podcasts have like kind of boomed. They've kind of like blown up. Like you're seeing new podcasts all the time. So you're kind of, on the more of the ground floor of it. So what kind of inspired you to get into that, and how has it changed since it's become bigger?
Yeah, I mean, it is still really, it is a big space. I still encourage people to start because it's still relatively small compared to like the blogosphere and the video world. And so it's, but yes, it's a pretty popular space right now. I started it 6 years ago after I'd really done a lot of different things. I had done magazine and books and TV. And right before that, for 3 years, I'd worked at Yahoo as a contributor doing a series of financial videos for them. So I loved it, and I was sad that it ended. And I really wanted to, again, back to what I was saying earlier, like, what's my next project? What's my thing, And for 3 years, I had the privilege of being able to sort of, utilize Yahoo's resources to create content that was really popular. And now that was no longer, I was craving that same level of sort of scale to like get a message out there, to like reach people. I wanted to reach people again. So how do I reach people? I don't have Yahoo. So I went to a work conference in 2015 or 2014. I just had my first kid. 6 months later, or 3 months later, I went to this like conference for financial geeks. And I noticed that there were a lot of men, not a lot, but like there were like a handful of men, financial experts who had started podcasts and were making some good traction and making money with it. And I like cozied up to them at like one of the happy hours, and I was like, what's going on? Like, how are you guys doing this? What's going? And I saw it within my industry growing, and all the while I was seeing in general like the podcast world getting more and more popular and more, frankly, like I had started a podcast in 2006 when I was at thestreet.com, but it was before it was before iPhones, and it was before there was streaming. So you had to download, like I remember if you wanted to listen to a podcast on your commute, you'd have to download it first and then get on the train, because there was no streaming capability. There was no like public Wi-Fi or anything like that. So it wasn't sticky, and so it didn't really take off. And then technology changed and supported a fertile ground for podcasts to really take off. And so I was like familiar with podcasts, but I was like, really, a podcast? What are you, like a 100 years old? Like this is how is this like sexy and new? Like this is kind of like boring and old. And I was starting to like, they were telling me more about like how the industry was changing, and like Apple was going to come out with like a new phone where it's going to have its own podcast app, and you could sync your iPhone to your car one day and listen to your iPhone on your car. And I was like, what? And like, yeah. So all this, so I was learning where the technology was going. So it convinced me that podcasting was a worthwhile investment, because I was like, it's just where the world's going. Like there's just going to be easier access to this. And so, just like YouTube made video making all the easier to share, Apple was making podcasts all the easier to share. So I was like, what the heck? Let's give it a try. Like, I can do this from home. I got a baby. I can't like, get camera ready every day or go on a plane. So I can do this from home. I gave myself a 6-month runway to like figure it out. I took a course. I leveraged all of my resources, which includes like all my contacts. I hustled to get guests. And I'm a journalist, so I felt very equipped to be able to do this. Like I know how to tell a story. I know how to format and produce a show. And I was ready to have deeper conversations about money. Whereas up till that point, a lot of my work was about like how to save on, your next shopping experience, or how to open up a retirement account, like really straightforward stuff. Whereas I felt like the podcast, being that it was this sort of intimate audio stretched out experience, you could really like, it's conversational. You could go into things in a deeper way and really zigzag your way through it. And, again, where I was in my life totally matched up to this platform, this medium, because I'm experiencing life as a mom, as a business owner. I just published a book about female breadwinning. So I had a lot on my mind, and podcasting was just, for me, a natural next step. And I was lucky to start when I did. And I tell you, when I started, I thought even then there were too many podcasts. I was like, this is never going to get listened to. But it definitely is a slow burn, and so I actually teach people now how to launch podcasts. I have a 8-week incubator helping people. We just launched 40 podcasts in September. People are still doing it and they're really liking it. Is
That's
anyone
amazing.
interested in
Wow.
starting a podcast? Does the Collegian have a podcast now?
I think news kind of does it more, but yeah, they have a podcast, I think, about sports and different things like that, and about Penn State. But yeah, it's just a really interesting industry. I don't know if like I would do it right now, but I listen to a lot of podcasts, so that's definitely very cool. So definitely good advice to like overall, like don't be scared to get into something. It's kind of the theme of what you're saying. So now I just want to kind of toss it to everyone else on the Zoom call. If you have any questions for Farnoosh or advice or anything like that, she seems like a very good resource. So if anyone has anything, now's the time.
And I'd love to know like where everybody's at. Like, where are you in your college journey or your collegian journey?
Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm the assistant marketing director, and I'm a junior marketing major. Um, yeah.
Cool.
My introduction.
So when do you graduate?
May of 22.
Oh, so you have another year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Have you been at the Collegian since freshman year?
Yeah, I started second semester freshman year. My roommate started first semester freshman year. So she kind of got me into it, and now she's the marketing director. So
Wow.
nice team. It's a lot of
Is
fun.
it still like a really good like people are friends there and like have, well, I guess now they're not really socializing, but
yeah, like last year was so fun. Like I've always just enjoyed everyone at the Collegian, especially like our marketing family. Like
yeah.
I just love everyone.
Yeah, it's a special bunch. It's
Mhm.
like it definitely attracts like a cool, I think, hardworking, intelligent, salesy people that like, even now when I go, I just love to hang out with salespeople. Like I love that. I love the marketing and salespeople. Like they've always got alcohol in their office. Like they're always down for a good time. They like to talk about money. They're good with money, so in my world, I've straddled like the news and business sides always. And I like talking to business people sometimes more.
I just have one question. Like you're obviously very successful and everything. So what is like the one like best part of your career?
Oh yeah. So thank you for saying that. That's like, doesn't feel like that every day. Well, I joke that I feel like when I was in my 20s and I was working in New York and I had all these career goals, but also like realistically, I wanted someday to settle down and have kids and be married, which doesn't really feel like anything you can control, because like your career, like you feel like you have a better control of than like who are you going to fall in love with and can you even have kids and when will that happen? And I did see a lot of moms in my career who were doing that. They had the career and they had the kids and all the things. And, you know, and then I also saw a lot of parents opt out of the workforce because of responsibilities at home and not being able to have both the career and the family life. So I think that, and I wrote about this, like kind of what helped me along the way to get to where I am. And the best advice I can give, especially for the people on the call that if children you think are in your future or you'd like to have a family one day, is be 1,000% sure about your career. Like, I know that's a lot of pressure to put on this call, but be in love with your job. So much so that there are no compromises, that you can and not to say that you're not going to have the family, but you're going to have the family and you're not going to lose that job. And in that place that you're at mentally, you will find solutions. Because so often when I hear from women and men who've like left the workforce to be the stay-at-home mom or the stay-at-home dad, and we can get into even a bigger discussion about like why I don't necessarily agree with that approach to life, because financially, like, it's very vulnerable and I'm very passionate about helping people with their money. So I'm not really an advocate for like full-time not working, making money ever. I get gaps in your career, but is like, they tell me why they left their jobs after they had kids. And they're like, well, I did the math and, daycare is like basically my income. And then they'll say, I didn't really like my job, to be honest. And that is the thing. That is where it all falls apart. Look, most jobs don't cover childcare. Like if you're a teacher, or if you have like an entry level job somewhere, like you probably will be cutting it close. Like if your kid's in daycare full time and you're working, it's like mathematically sometimes it does not make sense, or it's like, you feel like all your money is going to childcare. But you have to think long term. because for every year or 2 or 3 that you're not in the workforce, especially for women, there's a huge penalty for that. Financial penalty, career penalty, all of it. Unfortunately, we still live in a patriarchy. The business world's run by men for the most part. So we are not rewarded for, leaving the workforce by any stretch. And I'm speaking generally. There are exceptions at many companies that don't think this way, but I'm trying to like work within the system, so that I can get what I want out of it. And I have found that when you are really passionate about what you do and you have really feel like you really own your career, and you want to invite other things into that life, which is like a partner and family and all the other things, that it's so much harder to give up that career, but it is not going to be at the expense of the other things. Too often having your family and your obligations over here comes at the expense of the career. But that's usually because you're not really solid on the career, or you don't really see a future. I'm not going to say that everybody who has kids has to love their job, but you have to see a future. You have to feel like there's a path for you. And if you don't feel like there's a path for you, it's not because don't blame it on the family, blame it on the job, the career. That the career is not what is supporting you. It's not that like the family is forcing you to stay home. It's that you didn't find the right career. That's my opinion, and I think that's up for debate. But I know that for me, when I looked at all the parents who opted out or didn't work or were unhappy working and having a life at home, were not happy in their jobs, and for various reasons, maybe it was like the company didn't support working mothers. Maybe it's because like the hours sucked, or it's why we also see a lot of moms become self-employed, and it's like out of necessity, some of them, because like, their industries, Wall Street law, like it's just not conducive to a parent not working 80 hours a week or 100 hours a week. So love what you do. And I feel like I used to not maybe agree with that, because I'm like, oh, you can't focus all on your career because then you're not going to have time for, a relationship but that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying give 100% of your time to your career. I'm just saying find passion in your career. Spending a lot of time on your career isn't being passionate about it. It's just spending a lot of time on your career, but like being smart about your career and strategic about it and feeling like you're supported along the way through the people that you work with and your team and that's so important. Investing in like figuring that out, so that you don't feel like you have to give that up, and that you won't give it up. Like you love it so much. So I'll send that article because that was like the first tip. And then there were some other things too, but that was like kind of the first thing that if like looking back, you have to start thinking about these things sooner than later. It helps,
Yeah, that is great advice. Does anyone else have any questions before we close?
I have a question, but I don't want to jump in front of any student who wants to.
I just had a quick question. Hi, I'm Ava. I'm a junior, and I'm a journalism major, and I'm a features and lifestyle reporter for the Collegian. And I was wondering what you thought about virtual internships over the summer with COVID and everything. Are they worth getting over the summer and participating in?
Yeah, wow, that's terrible. Virtual internships. I mean, how fun can that be? But we've all, at least it's coming at a time in the pandemic when we've all kind of learned how to acclimate to Zoom and, I think this has really, I think I'm guessing everyone's communication skills has really increased in this time frame because, and before the pandemic, everybody would just do a call. Now we're doing video conferences. Like, why? Who decided on that? Like, why is it like, how come before the pandemic I could just get on a voice call and now I have to do my hair? So, yes, it's not ideal, but it's better than nothing, right? What you will still be gaining is relationships. And at this point, entering a team in a pandemic that's giving a virtual internship, they've probably got systems set up to create workflows and to allow you to feel like you're still part of a process and a team and a company, even though you're at home. So I would encourage it. It's kind of like, what else you gonna do? Like, it's a good problem, I guess, to have if you're going to get an internship, but it's in a pandemic. And yeah, I mean, what are you worried about? Or what are your hesitations?
I guess my hesitation would be if I would ever actually get some experience from the virtual side, but I see what you're saying about making connections in the field and everything.
Yeah, I mean, people are still doing the job, virtually. So you will miss out on, interpersonal time, and I don't know what kind, but so much of, if I assume like journalism is so it's such a like independent career. Like, you're writing on your own, or you're calling your sources, or you're doing research online. So a lot of the work is already, tech based or virtual or independent. And so I remember, like, when I worked in a newsroom, like in a magazine, like you could stay in your cubicle and not talk to anybody all day, except for people on the phone, your sources, So in some ways, the news world is like unscathed in some ways by this, other than, of course, if you were like trying to do like television news. But even television news, I do a lot of television segments from home, and I'm like, are we ever going to go back to being in a studio? Because it's kind of unnecessary. And I kind of love the idea of like just showing up and rolling out of bed and like, controlling my own lighting, and then, doing that way. And if you can find something that's in person, perhaps, but would you feel comfortable? And, it's kind of how everyone's in the same boat, so better than doing, I think better to take the internship than to not, if those are the two options,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's gotta be strange. As someone's first like work experience to do it virtually.
I would chime in. Like, I think it's a good question to ask the company that's recruiting for the internships, like what they've set up, like how they are going to make it work. There's definitely, I've hired people and had people join my team who I've never met in person, like done the entire interview process to onboarding, and I couldn't tell you how tall they are. Not that matters, but I've just never been in the room with them. And there's, we're getting 95% of the job done. I think there's like some fun lunches we're missing out on, along the way, and some, chit chat time and some of those, personal connection things, but we're forcing some of that connection time that would happen organically in other places just to make that work. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of in the same, I've made a lot of new contacts this year and last year, and I have not, I kind of love like being at home, I miss like having coffee and going out and obviously socializing, but like when you work for yourself, it's pretty much, this is it. Like, you're pretty much, I think that when I was like in my 20s, I was like, how can I be a stay-at-home mom, but also make money and be the breadwinner and have financial independence? And I kind of have done that, but not obviously without help. Like, I have full-time day childcare right now. You can't actually be like a full-time parent and work at the same time. It is not possible to do anything. Like, you're going to be like coming out with like a C+, D- on both sides at the end of the day. But yeah, that's another workshop.
So I'm going to throw my question. I know we're probably up at time, so we can, everybody can scuttle me along. But like one of the questions that had come up from the students that, in the course of setting up some of the sessions was about finding balance. And the world is crazy right now, but I think about, where you're at and independent and like there's great opportunity in figuring out, what you want to do and the opportunities you can take on. But then there's also like, how do you shut it off? How do you find that balance of the choices, of what you want to take on, what you don't? How do you manage, the ambition to do more, but then also find the balance for your family and for yourself? And wonder if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, the word balance is so aspirational. I like to use the word boundaries, because when you create boundaries, then you can have more balance in your life. And not to really think of your life as like, I think that when we try to pursue balance, it's so hard. It's also like when you think balance, you think equilibrium, and like, no, life is not equal. There's like, they're not like, and no day is like the next. And you know, um, I think that for me, what helps is to prioritize, and some things are just not going to get done. I've dropped many balls, and that's okay. Like, giving yourself permission to not, and when you're in college, I remember I'm really good at keeping lists. Like, I still have a list. I love lists. I had a list ever since I was like 8th grade. I put everything on the list. I love checking lists off. It feels so like such a sense of accomplishment. But some things are just not, like, if something's been on your list for like 2 months, just take it off your list, because it's not happening. Clearly it's not important, and just don't keep, it's going to keep bugging you. Like, you're going to keep feeling like you're not accomplishing anything. So, get really good at figuring out what is important to you. Like, what is it that you want to have in your orbit? Your health, your career, your family, your friends. You can't have all the burners on at the same time, and someone once told me, like, a stove comes with 4 burners. It doesn't come with 10 burners. It comes with 4. And you might have 8 flames going on in your life right now, but at the same time, only 4 can be on. So, and that's like a good metaphor, because, career, and I would think like the main burners for everybody is like career, family, your friends, and yourself. That includes like taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, taking care of like your friendships and relationships, and then work. Am I missing something? That's kind of a lot. Like, that's pretty much for everybody, like, ubiquitous. But so, at the same time, having those all aflame is very intense. So maybe like there's, there are times in your life when you're more focused on just 3 of those things. And then another time where it's a different set of 3 things, or a different set of 2 things. But like, just knowing what your 4 pillars are, like, what are the 4 tent poles in my life that are really important to me, and making sure that maybe not every day, but every week, you're being very intentional about that stuff. So like, look, there's no system. That's why there's like so many self-help books in this category, because nobody has the right answer. But I think that it just comes from the lived experience. Like, you're going to make a lot of mistakes in your 20s. But that's part of it. You're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to learn what you don't like. You're going to learn what you do like. You're going to learn, what you're good at, and you're gonna learn what you're bad at. And that's all important, because, I just turned, like, I'm turning 41. I'd like to think that like 40 was a defining year. Well, I was basically home all day, so for 365 days. But I still learn. I still feel like I like progressed. But like, I it sounds cliche, but I think that with every decade or every year, you just learn more about yourself, and you become better at you get better at life. You really do. Hopefully, if that's how it works for everybody. But you just the whole idea of burnout, like, if your career is your 20s are, you're supposed to burn out. Like, I'm sorry, like, you just have to work really hard in your 20s, because that's what else you got going on, like, hopefully you love what you do, and you just do it a lot. And I find that when you do that thing a lot in your 20s, like whatever career you have, you work at it, building relationships, like, you don't spend a lot of money when you're doing that, and that's good. Keeps you out of trouble, focusing on your career, staying in on a Friday night because you want to, like, perfect your LinkedIn page. Like, I support that, and so, but I don't know if this answered your question, but it's just like making room for fun too. Like, so a few years ago, I just decided I want to take a stand-up comedy class, because life was getting too serious. And I felt like I was neglecting a part of me that was really, if you find yourself thinking about something a lot, do something about it,
Yeah.
whether it's like you haven't talked to your sister in a long time, or you are obsessed with comedy like I am and love watching it. And it really kind of scared me, like the idea of like doing stand-up. And then I saw some friends doing it and I was like, how scary could it be if they're doing it, And then I did it and I really, and whatever like, I have a friend who like went on this workout binge for like all of 2020 because she's like, that's what my body really was telling me it needed. My body isn't telling me that. But like, listen to your body, listen to your brain, listen to yourself. I just did a whole podcast on listening to your intuition. What is intuition? Sometimes it takes us to the wrong place because we're so biased, but how to like filter through that noise to really listen to what your sixth sense is telling you. And it's not because you're seeing dead people. It's because like your sixth sense is actually a real scientific thing, which is all of your memories and your brain filing through all of your experiences and knowing you so well through those experiences to be like, this is actually where you're supposed to go. And then, we do that. We actually are, there is a magnetic pull towards things. Sometimes we resist it sometimes, but follow the magnetic pull. I was drawn to doing stand-up comedy for some godforsaken reason. I don't know what, and I'm not very good at it. Like, I'm not even a little bit good at it, but like my friend says, do it scared. What's that expression? Like, suck at something, find something you suck at and keep doing it because it teaches you humility. It teaches you to, grow. And we all have that thing that we hate or that we know we're not very good at. Actually, we're not very good at it, but we love keep doing it. Like for me, it's tennis. Like I will never learn how to play tennis. I can't, but I love the ritual. I love putting on my tennis sneakers. I love getting on the court, swinging my racket a few times, so that's like a guilty pleasure for me that I do once a summer. And so finding out that stuff about you, finding out those things about you and like dedicating some time and resources to it, not every day, but like enough where you feel like you're giving yourself the attention that you need, that thing, the attention that it needs.
I think that's good advice. That's good advice. I've taught myself grace of like, it's okay. You don't need to.
Yeah. Like seriously, giving yourself permission to say no, to drop the ball, to be like, I'm not doing that, or I'm not good at that. And I'm not going to do that. I know what I'm good at. And here's the thing, like, when you get so far in your career, or like after like 4 or 5, 6 years in your career, you obviously have accomplished things. Like there are wins to celebrate. And so focusing on those moments, like what was it about those moments that got you to that position or that promotion or that pivot? And we forget what we're capable of until we recognize those moments, because we are so hardwired to focus on our failures and what we're not good at. But it really takes a consciousness to be like, no, I'm the shit. I did this, I did that, I did that. So being your biggest advocate is a lot better way to go through life than focusing on your flaws.
Yeah, agree.
Good. All right.
Oh,
now I'm going to go order dinner because I can't do it all. I'm not cooking tonight. I'm going to go support local business. That's how I rationalize the purchase and order sushi. And I encourage you all, if that's what you want to do, go do that.
Well, enjoy. And thank you all so much for coming tonight. And thank you, Farnoosh, for all your great advice and all that you shared. So
yeah, thanks for inviting me. Thanks, Megan, for letting me know about this. This is so great. I know other collegianites and would be happy to help you guys get connected. But we're pretty connected on Facebook. Candy's also like, next time I get to State College, it's all about the Adam's apple.
I know. Looking forward to getting back soon. So once the world opens up a little bit. So
all right. Be well, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
thank you, Megan.
Thanks.
Thank you.